Welcome to this CSEC Physics June 2003 multiple choice solutions video. Let's get right to it. Question number 1. The unit of electrical resistance may be expressed as which of those four possible options? Well, you could know this off the top of your head, but more than likely you don't, and you would need to figure it out. How can we do that? Well, we would first need to know the formula that voltage is equal to current multiplied by resistance. Rearranging that formula, we'll have that R is equals to V divided by I. Now, what is voltage measured in? It's measured in volts, V. What is current measured in? It's measured in amperes, A. So, the unit of resistance is the ohm, will be volts divided by amperes, or VA to the -1 power. Hence, the answer is A. Which of the following is not a fundamental quantity? A. Temperature, B. Heat energy, C. Length, or D. Time? Well, the answer is B. Heat energy. Number 3. Figure 1 shows a measuring cylinder containing a fixed volume of liquid. Figure 2 shows a solid body submerged in the liquid. In each case, the total mass of the container and its contents is indicated. What is the density of the solid? Let's see, to find this, we have to first find the mass. So 160 minus 100 gives you a mass of 60 grams. Then the volume, we get that from the displacement. 50 minus 30, the difference in the two readings in the diagram, gives us a volume of 20 milliliters. So density is mass divided by volume, and if we take 60 and divide it by 20, we get 3.00 grams per milliliter, making the answer C. Number 4. Which of the following is suitable for measuring the diameter of a human hair? A tape measure, vernier calipers, micrometer screw gauge, or meter rule? Well, the tape measure and the meter rule, those are for bigger distances, not the diameter of a human hair. You might want to think it's the vernier caliper or the micrometer screw gauge. How do we know which it is? Well, the micrometer screw gauge has the jaws that will go right around the diameter of a human hair, and the mechanism will click when it reaches the exact diameter. So the answer is C. Question 5. 3 immiscible liquids P, Q, and R have densities which differ. Q is denser than P but less dense than R. Which of the following diagrams show how the liquids settle in the measuring cylinder? First off, what is meant by the part that says immiscible liquid? Well, that just means that the liquids P, Q, and R will not mix. They will stay separate. So we're told that Q is denser than P. So that would mean that Q would be below P. Also, we know that Q is less dense than R, which would then mean that Q would be above R. This means that Q is in the middle, P is at the top, and R is at the bottom. So that means the answer is A. Question 6. We are to look at the diagram seen there of a graph, and we're to answer the question, when x is equal to 0, the value of y is. So whenever x is 0 here, then the value on the graph, the straight line, is f. That means the answer is B. Number 7. The diagram above represents a 100 gram mass which can be balanced by placing a mass x at the position shown. If mass x is to be used to balance the 100 gram, it should be A. less than 100 grams, B. exactly equal to 100 grams, C. a little greater than 100 grams, or D. about 200 grams. Well, let's see. If we have 100 grams on the right at 10 centimeters, then if it was exactly equal to 100 grams on the left for mass x, then it would have to be at the same distance of 10 centimeters. Since the distance on the left is greater by just a little bit, then that means the mass would have to be less than 100 grams. You can think of when you were a child playing on the seesaw. If you and your partner were of different masses, to balance it out easily and quite well, the person who is more mass should be closer to the fulcrum or pivot, and the person who is less mass should be further away. Here the answer is A. Number 8. Which of the following is not true about the moment of a force? It is measured in units called Newton meters. It is the amount of force needed to keep a body turning. It is the turning effect that a force has when it acts on a body. It is the product of the force and the perpendicular distance of its line of action from a point. Well, here the correct answer is B. It is not the amount of force needed to keep a body turning. It is also known as the turning effect. It is what happens, but it is not what is needed to keep a body turning. Number 9. A stable, well-designed, calm racing car must have A. Low center of gravity, B. Very large mass, C. Very high drag or air resistance, D. Long front. Well, options B, C, and D are definitely undesirable. The correct answer is A, a low center of gravity. Number 10. Which of the following is not a vector quantity? Displacement? Yes, that's a vector. Acceleration? Yes, that's a vector. Momentum? Yes, that's a vector. Only option C, density, is not a vector. Number 11. Which of the following can be used to find the speed of an object? Would it be the change in velocity over the time taken? Nope, that is acceleration. Would it be the distance traveled over the time taken? Or the change in displacement over the time taken? Those are quite similar. Which would it be? Well, here we're asked to find the speed. Option B is displacement over time, so that would be actually velocity. Speed is a scalar, it doesn't have a direction, so it would be option C, distance traveled divided by the time taken. Number 12. When two bodies collide, momentum is conserved. This means that the kinetic energy before impact is equal to that after impact? No, not necessarily. If it was an inelastic collision, then that would be true. But here is just generally when two bodies collide, so we cannot assume that. B. The momentum of each body is unchanged after impact? Nope, not so. The momentum, they may change, yeah. The algebraic sum of the velocities before impact is equal to the sum of the velocities after impact? Nope, that isn't so. The velocities, they may change as well, and their sum will not necessarily be constant. However, what will be the case is that the total momentum of the bodies before impact is equal to the total momentum of the bodies after impact. Hence, the answer is D. Number 13. A book of weight 12 newtons is resting on a table. The force that the table exerts on the book is A. 0 newtons, B. Greater than 0 newtons but less than 12 newtons, C. Exactly 12 newtons, or D. Greater than 12 newtons. Here the answer is option C, exactly 12 newtons. 14. An object is removed from the ground and placed on a shelf. Which of its properties would you expect to change? A. Mass, B. Volume, C. Potential energy, D. Kinetic energy. Well, it's not the mass or the volume. Those won't be affected. It's not the kinetic energy because it won't be moving if you just place it on a shelf. The only thing that has changed about it is its height over the ground, so the potential energy has changed. The answer is C. Number 15. The kinetic energy of a body of mass m and velocity v is, well, here you just need to know the formula. It's 1/2 mv squared, so the answer is D. Number 16. A liquid is contained in a beaker. It is true to say that the pressure A is greatest at the bottom of the liquid, B is greatest at the surface of the liquid, C is the same at all levels in the liquid, or D, exerted by the liquid is the same as the atmospheric pressure? The answer is, of course, A. It is greatest at the bottom of the liquid. The further down you go in a liquid, then the greater the pressure becomes. Number 17. Which of the following units is used to measure the force per unit area on a surface? So, force per unit area is the definition of pressure, and pressure is measured in pascals, hence the answer is D. Number 18. Which of the following is longitudinal in nature? Well, let's see. Infrared rays, light rays, and water rays are all transverse. The only longitudinal one is sound waves, so the answer is C. Number 19. Which of the following is responsible for the glass house effect, aka the global warming effect? Well, out of all of the different electromagnetic waves, the one that is responsible for that is infrared rays. Alright, option D is the answer. Number 20. Which of the following is correct? Well, we have various different formulae relating temperature in Kelvin and temperature in degrees Celsius. A is saying that they're simply equal to each other. C is saying that you divide. And D, nope, they're not simply equal to each other as well, right? When you multiply times 273, the correct answer is B. The temperature in Kelvin is equal to the temperature in degrees Celsius plus 273. Number 21. The specific heat capacity of a material is the energy required to, and here it's simply asking if you know the definition. And here the answer is D. It is the energy required to change the temperature of 1 kilogram of the material by 1 Kelvin. Number 22. Some molten naphthalene at 100 degrees Celsius is allowed to cool down at room temperature. If naphthalene has a melting point of 80 degrees Celsius, which of the following best represents the cooling curve? So if you are familiar with what the cooling curve looks like, then here the answer is obviously C. Number 23. The figure above shows a piece of ice wrapped in copper gauze and submerged in a glass test tube of water. The water, when heated at the top, boils long before the ice is melted. The main reason for this is that the test tube is a poor conductor of heat, copper is a good conductor of heat, ice is less dense than water, or water is a poor conductor of heat. Here the answer is D. It's because water is a poor conductor of heat. The heat is in contact at the top, but the ice is way at the bottom, and the heat will not be conducted through water very well. Answer is D. Number 24. An electric kettle full of water is plugged into the mains. The process by which heat travels through the water is electrification, evaporation, convection, or radiation. And the answer for this one is C. Remember that convection occurs best in liquids and gases. Meanwhile, conduction occurs best in solids. Number 25. When a gas is heated in a closed container at a constant volume, the pressure of the gas rises. Which of the following statements concerning this fact is or are true? The pressure rises because the gas molecules strike the walls for the container with greater momentum. The pressure rises because the gas molecules now collide with the walls of the container more frequently. The pressure rises because the forces between the gas molecules are larger at higher temperatures. And option A is 1 only, B is 1 and 2 only, C 2 and 3 only, or D 1, 2 and 3. Well, the answer is A, only 1. Number 26. A flask contains air under pressure. Some of the air is let out slowly over a period of 10 seconds. When the flask is closed, B, pressure on the air in the flask will have increased. B, volume of air in the flask will have decreased. C, temperature in the flask will have increased. Or D, number of molecules striking the wall per second will have decreased. Here the answer is D. Why is it not A? Because if you actually let out some air, the pressure will have decreased. B, the flask is a solid, hence the volume will be constant. Why is it not C? The temperature will actually have done the opposite. It would have decreased because there are less molecules in there now. Number 27. We're given this diagram that shows the direction of propagation. It's a displacement distance diagram for a wave. It's asking you which of the following statements about the wave shown in the diagram above is or are true. 1. Points P, Q, and R are in phase. 2. Points S and T are out of phase. 3. The wavelength of the wave is the distance PR. Option A, 1 only. Option B, 2 only. Option C, 1 and 2 only. Option D, 2 and 3 only. And the answer is D. Why is it not the case that the points P, Q, and R are in phase? Well, it's because P and R are in phase, but Q is not. Even though Q is at the same distance away from the origin as P and R, Q will be going in the opposite direction as compared to P and R. Number 28. The diagram above represents a longitudinal wave where C and R represent compressions and rarefactions respectively. If lambda is the wavelength, the distance between C1 and R2 is, well, let's see. You should know that the wavelength is from compression to compression or from rarefaction to rarefaction. So from C1 to C2 is a wavelength lambda, C2 to C3 is a wavelength, C3 to C4 is also a wavelength. And similarly, R1 to R2 is a wavelength, R2 to R3 is a wavelength. But this question asks for the distance from C1 to R2. So here from C1 to C2 is a full wavelength, and then from C2 to R2 is just half a wavelength. So the answer would be option B, 1.5 wavelengths. Number 29. Plain water waves which travel from deep water to shallow water are A, diffracted, B, increase their speed, C, undergo a change in frequency, or D, undergo a change in wavelength. The answer is option D. Why is it not A? Because they will only be diffracted if they go through some type of aperture or opening. B, their speed will actually decrease when they go in shallow water. Think of waves crashing onto the shore. They come from the open ocean where it's deeper, and as they approach the shore where the water gets more shallow, they then slow down, and that's why they crash. They will not undergo a change in frequency because they do not change media. Alright? They will the only thing that will have changed though is that they will change wavelength. Number 30. The figure above shows a wavefront about to reach a reflecting surface XY. Which of the following would represent the wavefront after reflection? Notice that XY is a plane reflecting surface, and the wave is circular or curved in nature. When it gets reflected from that plane straight XY surface, it will look the opposite way and be going in the opposite direction. Hence the answer is A. B is almost correct, but it's not the same curvature. That's why it's not correct. C shows the exact same wave before it hit. It hasn't been reflected yet. And D shows that the wave reflected to be a straight line. That's just not how this works. Number 31. Which of the following statements about sound is not correct? A. Sound is transmitted as transverse waves. B. Sound may be produced by vibrating systems. C. Sound does not travel through a vacuum. D. Sound travels more slowly than light. Well, this is related to one that we had seen before. The answer is A. Sound is transmitted as transverse waves is not correct because sound waves are longitudinal. B, C, and D are indeed correct statements. Number 32. Which of the following types of radiation is responsible for an atom of carbon-14 changing into an atom of nitrogen-14? Is it A, alpha rays, B, beta rays, C, gamma, or D, infrared? Well, here you should automatically eliminate D. There is no infrared radiation that changes atoms, right? Also, C should be eliminated. Gamma, those don't cause atoms to be changed when they're emitted as well. It's either A or B. Well, let's take a look at it. Here, what do we notice happens? The mass number of 14 remains the same. It's only the atomic number that increases from 6 up to 7. So, what does that tell us? That tells us that we have one more proton, but the total number of protons and neutrons remain the same. So if the protons had increased by 1, but then the total remains the same, that means that the neutrons would have decreased by 1. So how does that happen? That happens when you have a beta decay. The neutron in the nucleus decays. It then changes into a proton and an electron. The proton stays within the nucleus, hence the atomic number increases by 1, and then the beta particle, which is the fast moving electron, that's sent out on its journey. Number 33. The sharp edges of shadows suggest that light, A, has a wave nature, B, is a form of energy, C, travels in straight lines, or D, travels very quickly. Well, although all of those statements are true, the only one that has any bearing on the sharp edges of shadows, is C, is that it travels in straight lines. Number 34. The table below lists the refractive indices of 4 different materials. Air, refractive index 1.0, ice 1.3, perspex 1.5, diamond 2.4. In which medium would the light waves have the slowest speed? Well, there is an inverse relationship with light waves, medium, refractive index, and the speed. So the greater the refractive index, the slower the speed. So the answer is D. Number 35. Which of the following would be true of the image of an object placed at the bottom of a tank of water and viewed vertically from above? 1. It is virtual. 2. It is diminished. 3. It is nearer to the eye than the object. And we have A, 1 only, B, 1 and 2 only, C, 1 and 3 only, D, 2 and 3 only. The answer is A. It is virtual. Number 36. Which of the diagrams best represents the passage of a beam of white light through a triangular glass prism? Here, when white light enters a triangular glass prism, it's going to be spread out, it's going to refract, right? But in particular, it's going to be spread out because the different colors of light will be refracted at different rates. So you are thinking, okay, it's either going to be B or C. Here, it's actually C. Number 37. The image on the film of a camera is usually A, inverted, diminished, and real, B, inverted, diminished, and virtual, C, upright, diminished, and real, or D, upright, magnified, and real. Well, if it's the image on the film of a camera, then that means it is inverted, it is diminished, it's smaller than the real life object, and it's a real object. Number 38. For which of the following object distances will a convex lens of focal length 18 centimeters produce a real image? 1, 15 centimeters, 2, 36 centimeters, 3, 54 centimeters. A, 1 only, B, 1 and 2 only, C, 2 and 3 only, D, 1, 2 and 3. The answer is C, 2 and 3 only, because it will produce a real image when the object distance is greater than the focal length 18 centimeters. If it is less than 18 centimeters, which is 1, 15 centimeters, then it will produce a virtual image. Number 39. A plastic rod P is rubbed with cloth Q. P becomes positively charged. This is because A, protons flowed from Q to P, B, protons flowed from P to Q, C, electrons flowed from Q to P, or D, electrons flowed from P to Q? Well, let's see. Here, you should automatically eliminate options A and B because protons stay in the nucleus. Those don't flow from one object to another when the objects are rubbed. Only the electrons flow. So it's either C or D. But which way do they flow? Well, let's see. We're told that the plastic rod P is rubbed with cloth Q, and then P becomes positively charged. So if P becomes positively charged, that means that it lost some electrons. So the electrons flowed from P towards Q. The answer is D. Number 40. Which of the following diagrams represents the electric field existing between two oppositely charged point charges? So the answer is either A or B. It's not C or D. Those should just be eliminated right away. What's the difference between A and B? The direction of the arrows. So the answer is A because the field goes from positive towards negative. Similarly, if it were a magnetic field, it would go from north towards south. Number 41. The current in a wire is 1 ampere if a charge of A, 10 coulombs flows through it for 10 seconds, B, 1 coulomb flows through it in 10 seconds, C, 10 coulombs flow through it in 1 second, or D, 100 coulombs flow through it in 10 seconds. So the formula for current is charge divided by time, and the only one here that would work out to 1 ampere is if it were 10 coulombs flowing in 10 seconds. So the answer is A. Number 42. Which of the following formulae in which the symbols have their usual meaning is a mathematical expression of Ohm's law? Well, Ohm's law relates voltage, resistance, and current. So that is option A, V equals IR. Number 43. A beam of light passes from one medium to another of greater refractive index. When it refracts, the A, frequency changes, B, wavelength changes, C, speed increases, or D, beam bends away from the normal. Here the answer is B. The wavelength is going to change. Why? Because the speed will change. In particular, if it goes to one of greater refractive index, the speed is going to decrease. Hence, in particular, the wavelength will also decrease. But here it just says wavelength changes. It's not option A because when refraction occurs, the frequency remains constant. The frequency depends on the source. Number 44. The refractive index of a transparent medium with a critical angle C for light traveling from the medium to air is A, 1 over C, B, 90 degrees over sine C, C, sine 90 degrees over sine C, or D, simply sine C. Well, let's remember our formula for refraction. It's N equals sine I over sine R. In this case, I will be 90 degrees and R will be the critical angle C. So the answer is C, sine 90 degrees over sine C. Number 45. A student requires a circuit to measure the resistance of a resistor. Which of the circuits below is correctly connected? Notice we have some ammeters and voltmeters in each of our diagrams. How should an ammeter be connected? An ammeter should be connected in series. How should the voltmeter be connected? It should be connected in parallel. The only diagram that shows those combinations is diagram C. The ammeter is connected in series to the resistor and the voltmeter is connected in parallel to the resistor. Number 46. When a large current passes through a fuse, which of the following is the sequence of events? A. The wire gets hot, then the wire melts, then the current is cut off. B. The wire gets hot, the current is cut off, then the wire melts. C. The wire melts, the current is cut off, then the wire gets hot. D. The wire melts, then the wire gets hot, then the current is cut off. So here we have to think, what is a fuse for again? It's a Device to protect electrical equipment. How does it work? Well, if there's too much current flowing through it, the current will cause the wire to get hot first, which will then cause it to melt, and if it melts, it breaks the circuit so that the current is cut off. The answer is A. You should have eliminated C and D right away, because how will the wire melt, then after that it's gonna get hot? No, doesn't work that way. That's impossible. Number 47. The diagram above shows an electrical circuit with a cell and two filament bulbs. Which of the following circuits is electrically the same as the circuit above? Well, if you notice in the diagram above, both filament bulbs are connected in series with each other and in series with the cell. So which of the four options A, B, C, or D are connected in series? That would be option C. 48. Rectification can best be done by using a transformer, B, capacitor, C, transistor, or D, diode. The answer is D, diode. That is exactly what the diode is for rectification, which is basically changing alternating current into direct current. 49. Which of the circuits below could produce the trace on the oscilloscope screen shown in the diagram above when the ends of the resistor are connected to the Y plates? So as we see there, we have rectification occurring, but it is only half wave rectification. It is not full wave rectification. So when we look at the different options A, B, C, and D, we should eliminate A and B because there are no diodes in either of those diagrams. It's either C or D. Why can we eliminate C? Well, for C, the power source is a direct current source. It's some cells. Those are DC. Rectification occurs when we change AC to DC. So the only possible answer is D. We have there the alternating current source. Number 50. Steel is not suitable for use in an electromagnet because it A, is too difficult to magnetize, B, retains magnetism too well, C, loses its magnetism too easily, or D, contains too many domains. The answer is A, because it is too difficult to magnetize. Alright? In an electromagnet, you want one that will be easy to magnetize and just as easy to demagnetize. Number 51. Which of the following cannot be deflected by a magnetic field? A, alpha particles, B, beta particles, C, gamma rays, or D, electrons? Well, what do alpha particles, beta particles, and electrons all have in common that gamma rays do not? Those are all charged. That's why those can be deflected by a magnetic field, but since gamma rays have no charge, they cannot be deflected by a magnetic field. The answer is C. Number 52. Which of the following are definitions of the term half-life of radioactive nuclides? 1. The time taken for the activity of any given sample to fall to half its original value. 2. The time taken for half the nuclei present in any given sample to decay. 3. Half the average number of disintegrations per second. And our options are A, 1 and 2 only, B, 1 and 3 only, C, 2 and 3 only, or D, 1, 2, and 3. The answer is A, both 1 and 2. Number 53. Which of the following persons is associated with nuclear energy? A, J.J. Thomson, B, Niels Bohr, C, Chadwick, or D, Albert Einstein? The answer is, hate it as he might, Albert Einstein. Number 54. Here we have the diagram of a simple AC generator. The parts labeled X in the diagram are known as the A, coil, B, armature, C, slip rings, or D, commutator. Well, look at X. What are those? They're circular. They're in the shape of rings. The answer is C, slip rings. Number 55 refers to the following diagram. On the left we have our primary coil, on the right secondary coil. Appropriate labels for W and X would be, well, let's see. A, step down transformer, X, AC input. B, step down transformer, X, DC input. C, step up transformer, X, AC input. Or D, step up transformer, X, DC input. So those are just basically combinations of each other. How do we know which one it is? Well, if it is a transformer, we can determine if it is a step up or a step down transformer by looking at the ratio of primary to secondary coils. Here, there are more coils in the secondary than primary. So that means it is a step up transformer. So that eliminates option A and B. It's either C or D. How do we know which one it is? Well, X, what is that going to be? AC input or DC input? Well, it's not going to be a DC input because that's not what transformers are for. They're for stepping up voltage, and that only happens when you have a changing magnetic field, which is only produced by alternating current. So the answer is C. Number 56. A conductor rotating in a uniform magnetic field induces maximum instantaneous current when the conductor cuts the magnetic field lines at C, 90 degrees. This is just one you gotta know. Number 57. The Rutherford model of the atom suggests that an atom consists of A, solid mass of protons and electrons. B, nucleus of protons only with orbiting electrons. C, nucleus of equal numbers of neutrons and electrons with orbiting protons. Or D, nucleus of protons and neutrons with orbiting electrons. Here the answer is D, nucleus of protons and neutrons with orbiting electrons. Number 58. According to the Rutherford-Bohr model of a neutral stable atom, if N is equal to the number of neutrons, P is equal to the number of protons, and E is the number of electrons in the atom, then for all elements, N is equal to E, option A, P is equal to E, option B, N plus E equals P, option C, or N plus P equals E, option D. Well, if it's a neutral stable atom, then the number of electrons is equal to the number of protons, so the answer is B. Number 59. Which of the following is not affected by an electric field? A, alpha particle, B, beta particle, C, neutron, or D, electron. This is very much like a previous question we just saw. A, B, and C all have a charge, so those can be affected by an electric field. And neutron doesn't have any charge, hence the answer is C. And finally, number 60. That refers to the diagram of a coil carrying a current and wrapped around a wooden cylinder. Which row of the table below shows the magnetic field directions at X, Y, and Z? Here, you would need to use Maxwell's right-hand grip rule, where you would curve your four fingers, your right hand, in the direction of the current around the coil, and then your thumb points in the direction of the north pole in the magnetic field that has been created. So your thumb would point towards Z to the right, and the magnetic field would then curve back around and go to the left past Y and come back in at X pointing to the right. So that is option D. This is the 2003 paper. Chances are you might find many of these questions repeated on the year that you take it. So good luck.